year. We are going to increase middle class tax cuts. We are going to ensure that working families, do not pay more than 7% of their income in child care. We know that the path to intergenerational wealth for so many families includes home ownership. So first-time home buyers will get a $15,000 tax credit for a down payment and closing costs. That's how Joe thinks about the economy. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who when asked, how's the economy doing, you know what he says almost every time. Well, how's the stock market doing? How are rich people doing? Which is why one of his first orders of business was to pass a tax cut benefiting the top 1% and the biggest corporations in America, to the point that we will be faced with a $2 trillion deficit. Well, let me tell you, if we do what we need to do in these next 6 days, Joe Biden and I are about to get rid of that tax cut and invest that money in working families, invest that money in building up our infrastructure, building back up our roads and bridges, building back up what we need to do around renewable energies. And that's going to be about millions of jobs. Because we know when you invest in the American worker, in American families, we as an economy will always do well. There's a clear choice in this election. The crises that we are confronting include a long overdue reckoning on racial injustice in America. And you have Joe Biden, who is informed about America's history and has the courage to speak truth and say the phrase, Black Lives Matter. Joe Biden, who understands it may be difficult to hear, but we've got to confront racial disparities in America, in our healthcare system, in our economy, in our education systems. Joe says we need to deal with small businesses, so many minority and women-owned small businesses who have gone out of business. And so we will invest $150 billion in low-interest loans and access to capital for those businesses. Joe knows we need to deal with the criminal justice system. It must be reformed, and do that, and do it in a way that is about getting rid of private prisons, getting rid of cash bail, which is an economic justice issue as much as it is a criminal justice issue. Decriminalizing marijuana, expunging the records of people who have been convicted for marijuana offenses. Joe Biden knows we have to deal with policing, and we have to hold anybody accountable who breaks the law. And so we will put in place a ban on chokeholds and carotid holes. George Floyd would be alive today if that were the case. We will say there needs to be a national registry for police officers who break the law, because you can't just do it in one place and then get fired and move to another place and get hired. That's not right. Joe Biden has the courage to speak these truths in a way that is about bringing folks together and fixing the problems we know exist. On the other hand, you have the current president of the United States, who went on a debate stage, debate before last, refused to condemn white supremacists, and then doubled down, saying stand back and stand by. And be clear, this is a pattern. This is the fellow who ran for office partly on a campaign theory to suggest that the first Black president of the United States was an illegitimate president of the United States. This is the same person. There's a pattern here, Phoenix, who on the tragedy of what happened in Charlottesville, remember that. People were peacefully protesting racial injustice. There was a young woman who was killed in that protest. And on the other side, there were neo-Nazis wearing swastikas, carrying tiki torches, hurling racial and anti-Semitic slurs. And the commander-in-chief said there were fine people on both sides. A person who came into office calling Mexicans rapists and criminals. A person who came into office and one of his first orders of business was institute a Muslim ban. We deserve so much more. Let me tell you, Joe, in his heart, in his soul, is running knowing that we must bring our country together and give dignity to all people. Joe knows it is time to end this attempt to spew hate and division among us. It is time to end trying to get Americans to turn on each other. Joe knows the real sign of someone's strength is not based on who you beat down. It's based on who you lift up. There are real choices in this election. Let's deal with something that all of us on the West Coast and in this area of the world understand quite well, and it is that we are in the midst of a crisis in terms of our climate, and it poses a threat to us as a species, and we must acknowledge the science and deal with it. You've got Joe who says, I see what's happening. I see that you have the West Coast, my home state of California, in Oregon, Washington, Colorado, all the fires, the wildfires, devastating. Entire communities are having to be evacuated. I have met with families that have been evacuated. I have met with firefighters who are fighting fires while their own homes are burning. My brother-in-law is a firefighter. The devastation is profound. You go to the Gulf Coast states. In fact, right now, what is it? Zeta is hitting Louisiana. It's the 5th named storm this year. I say named because they don't name a small storm. It's serious what it's doing in terms of hurting the livelihood and well-being of families. In the Midwest, floods to the point that farmers in that area of our country have lost a whole season of crops. We have to take this seriously. Joe says we have to deal with the science, but we have to see the opportunity in the crisis as well. One, the clock is ticking on this, and we need to act with a sense of urgency and put in place goals like net zero emissions by 2050. We need to understand that we have to have a protection of land and open spaces. We need to understand that an investment in renewable energies is also about an investment in jobs, an investment in the apprenticeship programs of our building trades, the carpenters and the plumbers and the electricians. Don't understand what leadership looks like on this. On the other hand, you have the current president of the United States, who, when approached by a journalist, and the journalist said something like, these wildfires are happening in California, and the scientists are saying, that the science tells us that these extreme weather conditions are a very big factor in what's going on. And do you know that the President of the United States of America responded, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America, he's supposed to be a worldwide leader, responded when being asked that question, science doesn't know. As though science is a person. Well, Mr. President, science does know. And it is time we take this issue seriously. So the stakes are high. The stakes are high, Phoenix. And you in this state, the reason I'm here, the reason I was here with Joe last time, I was in Tucson earlier today, the reason I'm here is to thank you because I do believe you all are going to make a real statement about who we truly are as a country. You are. Arizona has a well-earned reputation for wanting truth talkers, straight talkers. Arizona has a long-standing reputation for no BS. just get the job done. Arizona understands that come to me talking about issues that are the issues I deal with that keep me up in the middle of the night, that have me sitting at my kitchen table trying to figure it all out. That's what Arizona demands of its leaders. And in this election, that is what is at stake. Joe and I are very proud of the fact that in this campaign, we have built one of the broadest coalitions you've ever seen. We've got, of course, Democrats, but we've got Republicans, Cindy McCain, Jeff Flake, independents, people of all backgrounds coming together, understanding what is at stake. And the issues are, yes, the four things we've already talked about. It's so much more. It's about putting resources into our public education system. We will triple teachers' Title I funding. It's about fighting for civil rights, including LGBTQ rights. It is about immediately putting a pathway to citizenship and renewing protections for our dreamers under DACA. There is so much at stake. And I do believe, because of who you are, you will make a difference, not only in terms of who wins, but you will make a difference in terms of saying who we are. And so here's the thing. People then ask,